Hello, everybody. Cody Dimmer here. I've been reflecting on a little bit of a past circumstance that I've had in my life that hasn't happened for a couple years. Now, for those who don't know me, I was in a bad car crash with one of my very good friends when I was in high school, where unfortunately I was driving under the influence. It was a mistake I made years and years ago. And since then, it's been one of the things why I think I lived my life the way I live it now. Always trying to make a difference in other people's lives by doing what I do as a profession and as what I do on a consistent basis. I go and speak in front of 10 people all the way to 1,000 people. And I go speak about my past with addictions and mental health issues, and of course, the mistake that I made when it came to that car crash that me and my buddy were involved in. Now, after that car crash, me and my buddy that we were in, he almost didn't survive, unfortunately. And I had years and years and years that it took me to try and finally forgive myself after it. But even though I was trying to live my life after it, I still dealt with a lot of PTSD for years. Now, this PTSD would cause an effect in many different ways in my life. And one of the ways it would affect me is anytime I would get behind the wheel again. So anytime I would get behind the wheel and I would drive on the highway, I would feel a wind gust anytime I would drive past a semi or a big truck, and it would sway my vehicle a little bit. And every single time that would happen, anytime I drove on a highway, my body would seize up, tense up, and my body would start shaking a little bit. And then, of course, the tears would come. So it became such a regular basis thing for me. Every time I would hit the highway or I'd be in a vehicle, that it actually just became something normal in my life. So normal that, you know, I seen a semi coming down the highway anytime, and I would almost feel my body starting to get ready for that automatic response. Now, that response in my body happened for about 10 years of my life. This car crash that me and my friend were involved in happened when I was 18, where we hit a tree going about 112 to 116 kilometers per hour. Now, that's a fast speed to come to a complete stop. And it really bothered me for years and years. 3.5 years after that crash, shortly after that crash, is when I lost my license. So for 3.5 years, I would walk everywhere in my own home city in order to get to places that I worked or get to friends' houses or to do whatever I was doing basically for my life for 3.5 years. Now, when I got my license back, it took me a long time to drive anything past like 30 or 40 kilometers per hour. And even to put my hands on a steering wheel was tough for me at that time. But yeah, I started realizing this automatic response was in me as soon as I started driving on highways. And it became so normalized in my life that I didn't ever think that that was going to be different in my life. I thought that was just now a part of who I was. Anytime I got behind the wheel, anytime I got on the highway, I just thought that was me. Up until about 2 years ago, I had a contract with one of the bureaus I worked with in a speaking bureau that I worked with at the time, and I still do from time to time. I had a contract to go speak and share my lived experiences in a reserve up north in Alberta. So I made the trip, drove up to Alberta, spent the night, spoke, and the next morning decided, of course, to make my trip on the way home. And right outside of Edmonton, I realized something. I don't know how many semis or big trucks I drove past for the last couple hours coming from northern Alberta, but it was a few of them. And what dawned on me is that I couldn't remember truly or not if any of those automatic responses happened in my body, where my body would seize up and I would tense up and I'd get emotional. And then I really started to reflect, did it happen at all anymore? And so, of course, I started down the road again, just leaving Edmonton, coming my way back home to Saskatchewan. And then it didn't happen anymore. And so I stopped at a gas station, I pulled over again, and it just kind of started to hit me emotionally that that response in my body with all that PTSD, all that trauma that I had built into my body from that car crash has been with me for 10 plus years of my life. And I just almost couldn't put it into words at that time. That I came to the reflection that that response in my body, that traumatic PTSD response, didn't no longer have a hold over me. And that's why I was getting emotional. Because something that has stuck with me for so many years and that would happen every time I would put my hands on a steering wheel and be on the highway, it dawned on me that maybe all that trauma that I lived with so many years finally was leaving me in a good way. Now, it's not that I ever forgot that situation because one of the things that I do on a consistent basis is I speak about that topic a lot of times and I try and help inspire other people to not go down the same routes that I once took in my life. And I do that as a profession. And I do it a lot. It's one of the things I love doing, even though bringing up that story every single time isn't super easy for me. But it's something that I do love because I see a reflection in a lot of people's eyes, especially a lot of the high school kids that I speak in front of. I started getting into universities and colleges, and I spoke for corporate engagements and corporate companies now, and speaking in front of, communities as a whole. It's something I just deeply love. Last year was my biggest year speaking publicly in my life. And it was about 80 times that I spoke publicly. Now, that was some schools, that was some treatment centers, that was communities. Like I said, it was everything that I mentioned earlier. And so I speak about that topic, that car crash, quite consistently, quite often in my life. But at that point in my life, maybe it was about 30, 40 times a year that I was speaking at that time. And I think it was just a confirmation in my life at the time that I needed to know that the path that I was walking at that time of my life and still am is the right path that I need to be on for my own healing journey as well. And I think that's kind of what inspired me to want to make this video, truly, is that, a lot of times I think we get the notion of healing, of being something that comes and goes and we get to celebrate it and we get to move on and there should be fireworks in the background and everything like that because we're healed from some things that we've had to heal from. But it was a big realization in my head at that time anyway, that as it happened in my life, it suddenly, just kind of drifted away. Now, maybe because it was the years that I was trying to overcome those internal battles with the PTSD or the healing that I need to kind of venture into, more and more. But it just really opened up my eyes a couple years ago that it just kind of drifted away in my life, or out of my life, I should say. And so what inspired me, like I said, to do this video is maybe to just kind of relay that message to anybody who is trying to heal themselves out in the world for whatever past situation, past circumstance somebody else has gone through, and that you're trying to overcome those obstacles that you're trying to overcome in your life. I believe if you're walking the right path, you're doing the right things, your intention is there to try and heal and take care of yourself and better yourself. I believe whether or not you even see the progress or not, I believe progress is being made. Now, I witnessed it and I experienced it firsthand that, like I said, that automatic response that I was having over and over again in my life, I thought that was just who I was. I thought that was part of Cody Demery now for whatever, how many years I had left to drive in my life. I thought that was just me. But it turns out, I haven't had one of those experiences since then. That's been over 2 years of my life. That something stuck with me for almost 10 years of my life. It's pretty wild to really say out loud. And it's pretty cool to know that that part of me that used to bother me so much, my hands would almost start getting anxious and sweaty and clammy anytime I would start thinking about hitting the highway and going for a drive somewhere that was going to take a few hours. I would almost start feeling, my nervous system would start feeling uneasy even before a road trip. And for me, I do a lot of traveling around Saskatchewan as of right now. Like I said, about 80 engagements last year. That's a lot. I know a lot of speakers that maybe did 40 max, and they consider that a full year for themselves. So speaking publicly 80 times is a lot of highway hours, a lot of them. And I'm just extremely thankful that I don't have that automatic response in my body anymore, because it would make my day-to-day profession a little bit harder to do for sure. But really why I wanted to make this video is just because I wanted to relay that message that, sometimes the healing that we need to do, it doesn't just happen overnight. And whether or not you think you're making progression or not, I believe you're making progress. It might not be as quick or as fast as you want it to be, but anything worth doing and anything that is going to help you in a better way takes time. Nothing happens overnight. And at times it can be very tough for us to just be patient enough to give things enough time for us to see the progress that we want to see. Thought I'd switch up the topic tonight, give you guys that little bit of a story from my past life. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you have an experience you want to share in the comments, please go ahead and comment and share. Thank you for those who are going to listen to this, and thank you for those who are supporting this kind of, this experiment that I want to kind of see out for a long time here about making YouTube videos and sharing some lived experiences, some life lessons that I normally don't get to in my presentations. So if you like it, give it a like. If you want to comment, please feel free to give it a comment. And thank you very much for listening and watching. Once you believe you have the ability and capacity to do great things, that is when I truly believe life can become limitless. Thank you.